So in this video, we're going to talk very briefly about terrace designs and how you incorporate terraces into a hillside. So quite simply, we're going to talk about visualizing landforms, how you take sloped landforms and create flat spaces usable for people. And we're going to talk about three different methods that you can use for adding a terrace to a sloped form. So here we have a sloped landform. And we need to add terraces to sloped landforms to make them more usable. We need to make them more usable primarily to accommodate human activities and structures. We also need to control, collect, and direct dispose of water to make the terraces more usable. We'll talk more about that in the semester. So obviously, it's hard for people to relax and undertake certain activities on sloped landforms. So we have to create a flat space just that people can utilize the land. Here's an example of a terrace on a hillside. It is both cut into the hillside and also filled out onto the hillside to create usable flat surfaces. So as you can see, this flat surface makes the space usable for people. What you don't see but also need to recognize is that it's not perfectly flat. It has a slight slope to allow water to drain. We, however, are not going to deal with that slope. We're going to deal with absolutely flat terraces for this first exercise. So there are three basic ways that we can create a terrace on a slope. To begin with, we can bring fill into the site, add it to the site to create a flat area. We can also cut and take soil away from the site to create a flat surface that digs into the hill. And finally, of course, we can balance the two of these where we have some cut and some fill. This means that we do not have to import or export any soil from the site. We simply take the cut soil and add it to the bottom of the terrace to create the fill. We are going to look very quickly at all three of these methods because you're going to have to use them in your exercise. To begin with, we're looking at a terrace using cut. To create a terrace in cut, the contours that would normally go across the surface are pulled uphill above the terrace. That is, we are cutting the land out here, moving the contours in the uphill direction. They get closer together here because it's fairly steep. In section, you can see the same concept. These contours that used to be out at the existing grade are pulled back to the back side of the terrace, creating a steeper grade on the back side of the terrace and a flat surface for the terrace itself. In contrast to that, we can create a terrace using only fill. When you create a terrace using only fill, the contours are pulled downhill past the terrace and they create a steeper slope below the terrace, which allows the terrace to have a flat surface. And this, of course, could be easier to see in section. We have the existing grade of the land and we're pulling those contours out and we're adding fill shown in blue to create a flat surface. And of course, we can use both techniques simultaneously to create a terrace that is in both cut and fill. We commonly call this a balanced solution. In a cut and fill or balanced solution, contours are pulled both to the uphill side and pushed to the downhill side. So there's a steeper slope on the uphill side and on the downhill side with a flat surface in the middle. Again, this is easier to see in section. The cut material is removed from the high side and then stacked up on the low side so that we have a steeper slope on both the uphill side and the downhill side, but that then creates a flat surface in between. For your exercise, you're going to use all three of these methods, a cut, a fill, and a balance that is cut and fill simultaneously to create your terraces.